Hi, thank you so much for being here today for this little interview on how the evolution of workplace is affecting human interactions. It's really an honor to have you here.
Thank you, Sylvia. Happy to be asked questions at very unusual times.
Absolutely. And you are right in the middle of it as you're a workplace strategist at the Advanced Workplace Associates and also at your own consulting company. And you're also the president of the Swiss chapter of Workplace Evolutionaries, which is an international community of facility managers. And over the past 20 years, with your background in social psychology and architecture, you've been focusing on the evolution of ways of working.
It's exactly that. I joke, but it's a serious comment. I've been doing the Office of the Future my whole career, but the Office of the Future keeps evolving, and boy, it sure has evolved in 2020.
It sure did. So first question, based on your expertise and all your experience working with the workplace of the future, what would you say companies should consider right now to start defining their next workplace?
Good question. I mean, it's a question everyone is asking. At this point in 2021, it's been 14 months since people have been forced into the largest experiment ever done with humanity, and with no choice either. My recommendation is really to take a holistic approach and look at user experience as the center of the discussion. What is the user experience of someone who is working? And it's being flexible to the extreme is really a high-level strategic advice I try to give, because flexible work really concerns what you do, where and when, and how you do it. And the pandemic has given in crisis mode for many, but we've got a lot of good examples of companies who have been doing digital transformation over the last 4 or 5 years. And the technology has helped, but they didn't change overnight the way a lot of companies were forced to with the shutdown. So, I think the learning is the new next normal is, create a vision. What can you do to empower your people? And how can you help them become flexible? To use a term Microsoft is using a lot now, is extreme flexibility. I think that's really the top suggestion. And the other thing that we're talking about in the profession among us workplace strategists is this term, I'm sure you've heard, hybrid work. What is this new model? What is hybrid working? I think it has to be defined clearly. And this new perspective of blending models of work from home, work from the office, work from third places like co-working centers or airports or on the train. This is the new ecosystem. And I like this concept of holistic approach, the omni-channel approach to what the user experience is. And it's impacting everything, retailing, where you shop, when you shop, sometimes online, sometimes in a physical store when they're open. So this is a parallel very much with the office, and especially for knowledge workers who have proved they can work from home or in other places, and new technology or technology that's existed for the last few years, like using Microsoft Teams and virtual meetings, Zoom like we're on right now. All of these elements are helping people to be flexible and work when and where and how they choose. And I think that's probably the second most strategic word I would mention, Sylvia. Choice, giving people choice, where they work, and if they even go to the office, what they need to do, and be proactive, thinking about, why would I go to the office? What do I need to do? So it's a huge series of questions to understand what's happening now. But again, I say, where are the opportunities? Don't let a good pandemic go to waste. there's things that have been proven, and surveys I've done, surveys the Workplace Evolutionaries have done, has showed that 70% of people want to continue working from home 2 or 3 days a week. This is a fact. Also, don't overlook the fact 12% of knowledge workers also said that they would prefer to work in the office. They are not well set up to work from home. But I think there's a huge amount of listening that leadership in all organizations needs to do. They need to ask the question, what do my people need so that they could do their best work? I think that's real simple. But leadership has to step out of the way work has been done to consider these new possibilities. And it's an experiment. Digital transformation on steroids is the way I would describe the last 14 months.
Yeah, it's very interesting because it's about this holistic approach, right? You advise companies to have a holistic approach, especially considering the user experience, in this case, employees, and in a way empowering them to choose and to offer them this flexibility, whether they want to work at home or in the office or somewhere else, depending on what they have to do on the day or what suits them most in terms of productivity. And so the first step, you would say, is listening, right? Listening to employees and considering this user experience.
I mean, this is where people like me as workplace strategy consultants come in. We have all the questions, but there's no solution that's out of the box. It's an organic process. We have the questions, but each organization has the answers. The leadership need to define their vision. The employees at all levels are very capable of describing what they do and what they need to do. And the creativity where I come in, it's not a magic wand, but it's what design thinking is about, is to interpret what people say and translate that into settings or work processes or modifications of the way spaces are used, and to reinvent work. I think reinventing work in a customized way would be really maybe a good way to describe to people what workplace strategies is all about. It's a profession that did not exist 25 years ago. And workplace strategists have come along with, as you said, this holistic approach.
Mm-hmm. So there's actually a one solution fits all kind of scenario. It's really case by case. As you see many of these transformation projects, what role does this physical office play in human interactions?
That's a good question. And again, everyone is scratching their head and wondering, and you'll see a variety of opinions out there that, the office is dead, everyone could work from home. This is an extreme on one end that a couple of organizations experimented with in the past few years. The other end is I've seen some bankers, very big banks internationally, say, wow, as soon as this is over, I want to see everyone back into the office. So I think extremes like that are really not appropriate. Somewhere in the middle, the hybrid solution, blended solutions of sometimes work from home and sometimes work for the office. And here I come up with something in one of the projects I'm doing for the world's largest software company at the moment is be proactive. Ask yourself the question, what do I need to do? And would that be better done at home? If I'm going to write a report, would I want to go to an office? Outside of a few rare examples, people have suffered the last 10 years in not too good open space where there's noise and distractions happening. It's the last place I would want to go to try to concentrate and write a report or study a financial analysis or even compose a creative presentation. If I had an adequate situation at home, I would prefer to do that. However, what we've seen in especially the last two projects I did, people are desperate to get back to see their colleagues, to hug, kiss, shake hands, have informal meetings by the coffee machine, share ideas, and also this stimulates creativity. There's a whole scientific side of what makes an office environment tick, and the magic of serendipity, the magic of running into someone, or even overhearing a conversation, the way our human minds work. We get out of the box thinking in very funny situations, and very often in walking in nature or taking a shower. So the whole idea of being with people, hearing a word which clicks an idea, which creates a whole chain of thought, which can turn into a conversation, which can turn into a new product idea. These are the things that have been missing. They can be done in proactive ways with online meetings. It's force majeure. I've had to do workshops online the last 14 months. I've done 2 projects in this period without ever once going to Zurich from one of my clients, and virtually never going to another client's campus, which is only an hour and 15-minute drive away, but can't go, the offices are closed, or there's restrictions about how many people can be in the room. But coming back to your question, human interactions, I think, are going to be the more important issue about physical meetings. You go to an office to see people, either to meet clients, to have interactive sessions with clients or with colleagues, and to, on a third level, maintain social cohesion. There are 6 factors that support knowledge worker in doing what they're hired to do. Knowledge work, being creative, thinking, bringing added value, and trust, knowing people, having social interaction with your colleagues, factor that has been found to be very hard to replace with online meetings. Though, I've met you a few times. We're doing the best we can, but it's not the same thing as the 2 of us being in a room, sharing a coffee, looking at the body language of each other, and then playing off on ideas in a very natural human way. These are the type of things people are hungry for, and I think the office, in a few of my projects, the spaces are being redefined for common areas, shared areas, client meeting areas, socializing areas, and some workplaces. But the idea of taking a train or a bicycle or a car and wasting an hour of your day, even 2 hours of your day, to go somewhere where you don't have exactly the right kind of environment to do what you do doesn't quite make sense.
Mm-hmm. So what are some of your tips for companies to optimize these human interactions in this new hybrid realities? What are some of the things you put in place, for example, in your projects?
On a very strategic level, I tell my clients, let's make sure the environment attracts people and energizes them. I think this is going to guide any building refits that you see from now through the summer, getting ready for probably a big back to office return in the autumn. I think if the pandemic is handled, vaccination rolls out, the whole idea is attract people, energize them, have cool spaces, have stimulating spaces. I've said to my clients, dare to inspire your people. The worst thing you can do is put people in a gray box and chain them to a gray cubicle or a beige cubicle and say, okay, sit there and be creative. It doesn't happen that way. So I think the physical spaces need to be there to support human interaction, support creativity, and support collaboration in all the different ways it happens. Informal meeting rooms, informal meeting spaces, creativity spaces, in brainstorming spaces. These things are precious, and these are the types of things people are hungry to get back to ease the way they do their work. I think it's really missing. It's forcing people to find alternatives, but the alternatives are just not as good as the real thing. A lot of people are looking into video conferencing as a critical part of the future. I would say it's going to be there. If you put together the fact that 70% of people want to continue working from home 2 or 3 days a week, there's going to be a future situation where some people will be working from home, some will be in the office, and a critical meeting can happen. And I think this is the good and appropriate use of virtual meetings with video, if it's appropriate. But then you get into the whole discussion. People are really fatigued from nonstop video meetings. Sometimes a conference call, just voice is okay. Sometimes an old-fashioned phone call is sufficient. Sometimes a chat, sometimes an email. So I think there's a new kind of series of protocols, and it'll adjust work cultures in a way to find the appropriate activities and how people should interact. You've heard many companies say human resources are our most important asset. Salaries are probably the biggest cost. But you invest in assets. You don't try to cut costs when you're dealing with people. So human resources or human capital merits investment. And again, I come back to these questions. What do you want to accomplish with your organization? And then how can the environment help you to do that so people do their best work every day, which could be at home in the morning and in the afternoon in the physical office for people to decide. But it's a challenge to glue that all together.
It really sounds like the key words here are hybrid, which is our new buzzword we all heard about, this flexibility and this empowerment. The employee itself has the choice and has this kind of individual accountability to decide what's best or where it's best to work from on any given day.
Exactly. When you use the idea of empowerment in its sincere sense, you're opening the door for leadership to really be challenged or be serious about diversity and inclusion. People have learned that during all these nonstop virtual meetings we've been living through the last 14 months. But it's interesting, remarks have been made that introverts have been better represented in virtual meetings than in physical meetings because introverts have been considered just part of the whole circle of staff meetings of 4 to 8 people or even meetings with 10 people. The good facilitators are making the rounds, making sure everyone's voice is heard. And it's encouraged people who before in physical meetings had tendencies not to speak up, to participate more. This has been observed, and yet at the same time, it's created new levels of fatigue and new levels of, I would say, human awareness of where our colleagues live and how they live with the background or the kids running through, or, you know, someone stands up, you see they've got a shirt, but shorts below the waist. And lots of things have come out in the last month, which I think personally, from firsthand experience in talking to CEOs or human resource leaders, there's a humanizing effect from being in someone's living room or kitchen or the corner of their bedroom and all. Home office, people are a little more emotionally engaged with their colleagues. This is having a leveling effect. And in some organizations that are looking for flatter hierarchies, it's a very interesting human way that this flattening of the pyramid is happening in quite interesting human ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing, Clark. Thank you so much for all this insight and for being here today with us on this interview.
It's a pleasure, Sylvia. Reinventing work is a journey. It's not a destination. So we're coming out of a giant experiment going into a new experiment. How to glue the pieces all of this giant puzzle back together in a new way that's appropriate, that's human, that takes work-life balance into account, and the hybrid combination of all these elements. I really would like that message to be spread. It's a journey, it's an experiment, and it's an ongoing process.
Yeah.
Great.
Absolutely. Thank you, Clark.
You're very welcome.